Great, 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 great. Okay, so we can start now. Like I said in the beginning, it's day one, so we are hitting the ground running. Um, so I'll just welcome Larry, so he will just share his screen and take us through today's session. Um, we the entire session will end. Larry, can use about maybe an hour 15, an hour 20 minutes. Then we will also, or maybe an hour or an hour 20 minutes for his session. We will have a live what's that thing called? A live quiz which has been prepared, and points. Like we said yesterday, where we've introduced a points system, so that helps us to be able to you know distribute in a transparent manner the different perks and the different rewards for hard work. So a quiz. We'll have a quiz after a Larry session, an online quiz, and so that will be the beginning of the point system. So I'm looking forward to it. I hope you are too. All right. So please, with yes, a live quiz. No, we have to find a way to fix. He said about unavoidable network issue. I don't think you have a network issue. Just believe. All right. So I want to welcome Ileri. Please put your virtual give him a virtual round of applause as it takes over. All right. Thank you, Ileri. Over to you.
Very much. Apologies, I would have to stay off cam because I'm not in a very nice setting. But can we hear me?
Yes, we can hear you very clear, loud and clear.
Okay. So good evening, everyone. I believe most of us here are in West African time zone. So good evening. Like you know, or you should know, my name is Ileri, and I'll just be handling this very first session. I'll share my screen in 30 seconds. Let's see. One second. I hope it doesn't ask me to. All right. Please let me know if you can see my screen. Can you see my screen?
Yes, we can see your
Uh,
screen.
awesome, awesome. Thank you. So good evening once again, and welcome Bootcamp. And well, my name is Hilary Adebi. I'm an ambassador with the CNCF. I'm also an organizer, you know, in the cloud native community, particularly Lagos Community Group, and co-organizer for KCD Kubernetes Community Days Africa. Um, I hold three certifications in Kubernetes Administrator, the CKAD, the Kubernetes Developer, Application Developer, EKS, which is a Kubernetes Security Specialist. And it's an honor to be a part of this initiative from the Lagos Community Group, and I do hope that everyone who is a participant will get the best out of this um, bootcamp. Yeah, moving forward. So we want to just give a very an overview of the KCNA program, bootcamp, the exam, and any other thing that you would want to learn. What you can definitely ask questions. I would be glad to provide a response. Um, Today I have a very short slide, but I think I have a lot of talking to do. So please just follow along, and I hope you make sense out of it. Here is the agenda that I have before me. It was supposed to be longer than this, but I think I'll talk through the remaining so that we don't get bored. Um, but yep, so we're going to look at the program overview and learning path. We're going to talk about the exam structure and just some preparation strategy. We're going to look at what cloud native computing is, what it really is. Then we'll talk about the Linux Foundation and the CNCF, and then we'll, talk about some fundamentals about cloud native. Um, so let's move on from here. Um, Exam overview or course overview and learning path. So if you have taken any of the Kubernetes exams, maybe the CKAD or the CKA or CKS, you'd you'd agree with me that um, it's a very, let me say, it's a solid exam, that anyone can take in the cloud space. It's very hands-on, very practical. I'm referring to the other exams, all right, the other certifications, CKAG, CKA, and CKS. However, there is this other certification, KCNA, the Kubernetes and Cloud Native Associate certification, that is tailored towards beginners. It's very beginner um, focused. It's for people who are coming into the cloud native space and you want to, you know, build, start building from a beginner's perspective, and that's what the KCNA is. So unlike the other exams, unlike the other certifications in Kubernetes certifications, this particular certification, okay, like we'll see, later on, it's different. All right, but here is what the course, I mean, the exam, focuses on or specializes on. So in taking these exams, you have several questions to, what's it called? Several questions to attempt or to answer, but these are the weights of those questions. In the exam, you're going to have 46% tailored towards Kubernetes fundamentals. That means, one of the things that we'll do in this bootcamp is to help you learn Kubernetes, the fundamentals of Kubernetes, because that is taking almost half of the entire certification, 46% weight. The next one we have is container orchestration, and that is, going to weigh 22% in the exam. Then we have cloud native architecture, 16%, followed by observability in cloud native, 8%, and then application delivery, which is also at 8%. And so all of this, makes up 100% of the certification. So if you want to, prepare for this exam, I believe everybody here will, take the exam eventually. If you want to take this exam, you have to pay attention to this and channel your strengths in this, based off of what I've just spoken about. Um, so moving on, that's what the exam looks like. Let's move further from here. Um, Learning path. So a lot of people have asked, that is this certification, is it for beginners? I just mentioned now that it's tailored towards beginners. Now, when you check, when you try to register for the exam itself, you would find that it says there is no prerequisite, to take this exam. That means anybody who is a a beginner, let's use that term, can take this exam so long as you study and you prepare for it. However, there are some things that are suggested, and this year, shows us a learning path. Many people come from systems administration background, and they go into cloud native from there. Some people come from software development background and they go into cloud native from there. So whichever field you're coming from, you definitely must interacted with an operating system. All right. So even though it's not a hard requirement that you should know about operating systems, it's just suggested, because eventually, using a computer, you have to deal with the operating system. But the operating system of choice in this case is Linux. Now, this is a learning path. It's not a mandatory um, um, thing to have. It's just a suggestion. So anybody who is planning to take this exam, maybe if you spend some time, with Linux, or if you have already spent some time with Linux, things should be very familiar. And so this is the learning path here. Introduction to Linux is a free course. Anybody can take that course to get up to speed on just the fundamentals. We also have Introduction to Cloud Infrastructure Technologies, and these are free courses that you can take from the Linux Foundation. Anybody can visit the website and apply to take these courses for free. I think it's on EDX. So those ones are considered basic, or very beginner friendly courses, entry level. Some more advanced or intermediate courses are, the next one that you can see, Introduction to Kubernetes. And of course, like I said earlier, you require 46. Kubernetes is going to weigh 46% in the exam. So if you have an idea of Kubernetes, then it works. That works for you. So that's where we are. Apologies for the background noise if you can hear any. Then the next one here, just to increase chances, is you can also take the Kubernetes and Cloud Native Essentials course. These are, available for you to take, and then finally you can register for the exam itself. But since we're already in this boot camp, we'll be touching on all of these things that I have just mentioned. So if you were not in boot camp, it would have been nice for you to just, get a refresher if you need one. But since you're already in this boot camp, we're going to be talking about Kubernetes. We're going to be having hands-on sessions, practice sessions and labs and quizzes. So all of this learning path, will touch them along the way. So I'm not sure if there any question in the chat so far. Seems everybody is following nicely. Okay, so I'll move on. What's the next thing? Now, the exam structure and preparation strategy. So before, okay, I'll first go to the exam structure. Then before we move on to preparation, this exam is firstly online. That means you'll be required to sit for this exam with a computer, using a computer with, of course, internet connectivity. It's proctored. When you're taking this exam, in fact, before you start to take the exam, you would have the person who is monitoring you, all right, ask questions about your environment. You'd have to, for instance, move your camera around the room where you're taking the exam to ensure that there is nothing that can stand as an exhibit, while taking the exam. So it's proctored. You're being watched. You're being recorded, and if you try to, you know, if any dubious person tries to take the exam and does something dubious, it's very likely that they will lose out on the certification entirely. So this is something to take note of when you're taking the exam. Ensure that you're in a very um, comfortable space, in a space where you would have little to no distraction or disruption as well, because you're going to be monitored, throughout the exam process. At intervals, you'll be asked to, show, move your camera towards the environment where you're taking this exam. So that's what it looks like. I remember when I was taking the I think CKA, or was it CKA? I think so. I had to literally clear out the room where I was. I had to remove things from the room, because there was no there were lots of papers in the room, and I had to just take all of those things outside, so it's something like that, of that nature. um so it's proctored. And now, the difference between this exam and the other exams, the Kubernetes exams, is that this one is multiple choice based. um I personally feel that multiple choice, easier compared to um exercises, because you can think through. The options can help you. And you can just say, oh, I think it's this, oh, I think it's that. And of course, when you get to CKA or the CKAD, even the CKS. Fun fact, I mentioned that I did all of these certifications, um, but I failed the CKS on my first attempt. All right, so that's one thing that happened to me. I failed. But the thing is that for the Kubernetes exams, you get two attempts. All right, so if you fail on the first try, you can try it again. And that's one good thing about these exams from the CNCF as well. So just take note of all of this. It's online, it's proctored, and it's multiple choice based. So you can look at the weights again, the one I shared here, and you can spend more time on the things that carry most um, appearances in the exam. For instance, Kubernetes fundamentals, it goes without saying. More than half will touch on Kubernetes. On from the exam structure, I just want to ask some questions in the chat. If you want to just help, just post what you think. How do you think you should prepare for you know this particular item says preparation strategy? How do you think you should prepare for this kind of exam? you know let's just maybe take like 2 minutes. People in the chat, if you can just drop something. Okay, somebody says a structured outline, somebody says punctuality and assertiveness, somebody says oh, okay, somebody's asking, would it be at person? All right, thank you for that, and good thing I'm looking at the chat as well. So it's not well, I'm not I've not seen anyone who did take the exam at any of these centers, the or registered through any of these third party organizations. You register directly on the portal, on the CNCF portal. You pay for the exams, and you sit for the exams using your computer, at any convenient space that you like. So it's not I'm not I can't remember. I did the exam in 2021, but I can find out more. I think I understand the question, but I would definitely um, do some more. I'll dig into that for you, and hopefully. And by the way, there is also a handbook. Anybody can access the handbook, and you can read more about these things to know how the exams are based. Yeah. So good question. Good question there. Somebody says to prepare, you have to get study materials and according to the outline, get exam guide. Now, somebody says practice a lot. Fantastic. I think I like that. Practice a lot. So good one. I'll just move over to the slides again. So there are several ways you can prepare, and you've mentioned some of them, and I just mentioned, I just listed out some things here, um, that I think can be helpful. Of course, there's no one way to skin a cat. It's not one size fits all. So any strategy that works for you is fine. However, these are some things that I think have worked for people. Self study. People study and self taught. I think what that simply means is that you did not have a structured learning process. and you decided to teach yourself, research yourself. Nobody physically, because eventually somebody wrote the book you're reading, somebody made the course that nobody handheld you, and walked you through each step of the way. So self-study is one way. Boot camp, now I put that in here on purpose. This boot camp for preparing for the exam itself. So boot camp is one way, where you gather together with other people in a community, and you're learning together. You have tasks, you have quizzes, you have exercises, and then you have facilitators who can guide you, and mentors, etc. So boot camp, one way. People pay for online courses as well, to take exams. You just go on Udemy or Udacity or whatever platform, and you take online courses, either paid or free. People decide to go that route as well. It's similar to the structured format of learning, because usually these courses have a curriculum that you'd follow through with. um, and some people also would start out in public, ask questions online, on social media, you know practice, share what they're learning, document it in public. uh, from there, that can be a way to prepare as well. So there are several strategies that one can try or get the exam. And so just leave that open ended. Anybody can, you know, come up with any strategy that works for them. Some people, like I know some people who would pick a notebook and go through an online course and begin to take notes. So people have several strategies for preparation. But mention in this is that ensure that you practice and practice. Don't don't just have theoretical knowledge. Don't just watch videos, or don't just listen in the boot camp and you're not going back to practice. Practice as much as you can. For instance, there are going to be hands-on sessions. Get a Kubernetes cluster onto your, locally on your computer, and practice some of these fundamentals that you're learning. All right, so that's one thing that I would like to add to that. Let's move further from this. Introduction to cloud native computing. Okay, I think I like this topic. Um, so before I move further, I'll just ask a question. Who knows what cloud native computing is? Please don't Google. You know, I think, are we allowed to unmute? Danny, I don't know if I'm allowed to
Yeah, they are
unmute.
able to unmute. Yeah.
Maybe you can raise your hand. Oh, all right. So who wants to just try what's cloud native computing? Don't Google. In your own understanding. Okay, I see Samson. Go ahead, please. Samson, can you unmute and speak? Okay, Samson is having a hard time unmuting. Is there any other person who wants to try what's cloud native?
Hi.
Uh, okay, Celestina, please go ahead.
I would just say cloud native is something that is not linked to a particular cloud provider, maybe AWS or GCP, so it works anywhere with them. That's my understanding. Does that work?
Okay, thank you for trying. Thanks a lot, Celestina. I see Samuel. Samuel, okay, so yeah.
Hi, I was struggling to unmute my mic. It's something.
Oh, Samson. Okay, please go ahead.
Yeah. Okay, my understanding of cloud native is leveraging services or platforms that are entirely um, on the cloud. That means we're using things like network, database, storage, and containers. All these services are strictly cloud services, and we are developing using these services. That's my understanding of cloud native computing.
All right. Thank you very much, Samson. Who else wants to try? I think I saw Samuel's and is there anybody else who wants to try? Okay, Mohammed, please go ahead. Mohammed, are you having are you struggling to unmute as well? While we wait for Emmanuel, does anybody else want to try? Richard, please go ahead.
So from me, cloud native, from the word native actually, is basically from my own understanding the applications um, hosted on the cloud, so native to the cloud, and the cloud now talk about Microsoft Azure, AWS, and the likes. So that's basically my understanding.
Okay. I, I I couldn't make out entirely what you said, but I heard something native to the cloud. Okay. Thank you for putting the words back into the answer. Question back into the answer. But that's smart. All right. Mohammed, you see you're raising your hand.
Yeah, like,
Do you want to try? Yes, I can hear whoever that is.
yeah. What I said was like applications that are hosted on the cloud. So hence the word cloud native. That's what I said.
All right, all right. Hosted on the cloud. Thank you for that. Um let's see, maybe one more person. One more person.
I
Joel. Okay, please go ahead. Thank you. Yeah, go ahead, Joel. You're muted.
Sorry. Um, Good evening, everyone. So, based on my understanding of cognitive, I'll say it has to do with building and running application on the internet. In this aspect, the cloud, instead of just on your physical computer or servers. So that's what I feel like I know as cognitive.
All right. Thank you very much, Joel. Then finally, Abdulakim.
okay, hi everyone.
Hello.
My understanding about cloud computing is relies on cloud native resources because of some benefits it offers as opposed to on premises computing power, such as cost and then availability of those resources.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you for trying. Thank you everyone for speaking. So I'm going to, I'll give us the official definition. But before I give us the official definition, let me tell you what I think, because I remember I used to work at an organization called Container Solutions, and we found out that there was no single definition for cloud native computing. There was no single, you know, somebody did a research and found out that the definition from the CNCF had changed multiple times over the years. So if you go to CNCF's GitHub page where the definition is, and you check the commit history, you see that somebody had been fine tuning that definition. Cloud native computing can mean things to different folks. All right, but yeah, and if you notice from all the things that I said, there were so many. There were, of course, we mentioned the cloud, but there were still some variations in our definitions. And so I'll tell you what I have the word cloud in it, surely. But what is cloud native? I often tell people that when you're doing not you may not be. You don't assume that cloud computing is cloud native computing. All right, and don't assume that. So there's, I cloud native computing could mean some people it could mean that you're using multiple clouds. All right, but clouds using AWS, GCP, and Azure doesn't mean you're cloud native. So cloud native refers to something different. But now, also one of the things that I want to mention here, in all our definitions, most of us mention things to do with, so that's also a misconception to think that cloud native is all about the tools. Yes, the tools are a major part, but there is it's similar to DevOps. When you talk about DevOps is not Jenkins. DevOps is not GitHub Actions. It's not the tool, all right, per se, but the tools are part of, the entire practice of DevOps. So similar to that, if you look at cloud native from that DevOps perspective, then you'll agree with me that, oh, it must be the tools. The tools are, what make up cloud native in its entirety. But for instance, there are things called, there's a book, one of somebody in the community released a book recently called Cloud Native Attitude. Now, cloud native attitude, I'm not sure you're going to use Kubernetes, for a cloud search. There's cloud native mindset, there's cloud native approach, there's cloud native organizations as well. So it's the definition for cloud native is different from what we may think. Of course, then there is now cloud native computing, which really talks about the computing itself, how computing is done in the cloud native era. And there are some companies that are called cloud natives. For instance, Netflix is often called a cloud native organization. And if you do some research and you've tried to find out what they mean by that, they'll tell you that oh, Netflix was born in the cloud era, and entirely all the things they do are entirely on the cloud. They're one of AWS's biggest partners or customers, pardon me. So there are companies that are called cloud native, they're called legacy companies. All right. And there's this thing called digital transformation, where you try to move a company from legacy to cloud native and beyond, of course. So let's see the official definition for cloud native computing. For cloud native, essentially. So this, I took this out of the CNCF's charter on GitHub. It's accessible to anybody and everybody. So cloud native practices empower organizations to develop, build, and deploy workloads in computing environments, public, private, and hybrid cloud, to meet their organizational needs at scale in a programmatic and repeatable manner. It's a mouthful, but it's self-explanatory if you look at it, properly. So now let me just put a thought on the table. One of the cloud native tools that we have today is Kubernetes. But do you know that you can run Kubernetes outside of the cloud? So if Kubernetes is cloud native, but a lot of people can use Kubernetes without using the cloud. So from there you get what I'm saying. That is not really, it's not just, let me not say it's not really, it's not just the cloud itself. The cloud is a big part of what cloud native, does, but it's not just the cloud. All right. So if you see people doing cloud computing and they're using AWS, they are using Terraform for um, provisioning systems on the cloud. That's not necessarily cloud native. So somebody else defined cloud native as the right way to do cloud computing. So that's the way somebody else defines cloud native, right way to do cloud computing. So you can pick that as well, and work with that definition, but it means different things to different people. Now I'll read the next sentence here. It says it is characterized by loosely coupled systems that interpret in a manner that is secure, resilient, manageable, sustainable, and observable. All right. These are big words, but we'll definitely we'll look at all of this throughout the boot camp. We have cloud native. The next sentence is cloud native technologies and architectures typically consist of some combination of containers, service meshes, multi-tenancy, microservices, immutable infrastructure, serverless, and declarative APIs. This list is non-exhaustive. So, I'll just touch a little bit on the architecture of cloud native computing because that's also part of the agenda. Well, unfortunately, I don't have a slide for that at this time. So when we talk about containers, that's why it was said that initially that there's a learning path that is suggested for you to have some Linux understanding operating systems, even though it's not mandatory. It's very helpful. So if you are familiar with Linux, there is a concept in Linux called containers, and in today's world that has been modernized in some way that allows you to now do computing using containers. But of course we'll break all of this down later on. Sorry, give me 1 second. All right. So apologies for the break. So I'll talk about um serverless. Let me just talk about serverless on this as part of this architecture thing. Serverless, people today would say, oh, we're doing serverless computing. And what does serverless computing mean? Serverless computing is shifting the responsibility of managing servers to the provider, either the cloud provider on maybe AWS, Azure, you are a provider that is responsible for the service that you're using. So I'm going to deploy an application, for instance, but I'm not managing the servers. That's in its most basic term. So serverless computing is seemingly having no servers. All right, that's when I'm just saying that in its very basic form. All right, but it's a lot more than that. um but we may during the boot camp, I believe those things will be explained to us eventually. So let's go back to the slides. um what are the benefits of cloud native or cloud native computing? Definitely, it's similar to the DevOps world. People doing DevOps today, know how you would have maybe, for instance, talked about things like containerization. If you're a DevOps engineer here, you most likely have heard about things like containerization, using containers. You might have talked about trying to ensure you're building immutable infrastructure, um, using maybe like images, container images, and things like that. Now, one of the benefits of all of these things is that organizations can now have changes more frequently, than maybe legacy organizations. So I'll come back to Netflix that I mentioned earlier. Now, I don't have the stats, but I read this somewhere, I think about 3 years ago or 2 years ago, about Netflix. Now, I don't have the stats, so I'll just give an arbitrary number. So Netflix is a cloud native organization. All right, they're born in the cloud, literally. And one of the things I read was that they had, now I'm not giving, don't take my word, go do your research, but they had a very high number of deployments to production in a day, a very high number of deployments to prod. Now, back in the day, you'd have people do a lot of testing before things hit prod, development work, testing, quality assurance, and all of those things. But Netflix, because of their cloud native approach, they were able to make changes. And the impact of that, if you're using let me use this example because we're Africans. If you're using DSTV and you're watching maybe Super Sports, or let me not use Super Sports, maybe you're watching what's the Mnet series or something, Mnet movies or something like that, your sometimes you may have some bad experiences, and you just can't complain. You just keep moving with what you have until maybe you change your console, or you try to whatever the thing is. But Netflix came and began to give us movies, you know using their platform. So you didn't have to get a dish to install it on your building and all of that. So they were competing with all of those, call them traditional movie houses. But then Netflix began to build on its user experience. So when they notice that things are not working fine, they get feedback from the customers and they want to implement those changes. We heard, or what I read was that they in a day they can have, you know a lot of deployments to production. That's why you can go to Netflix and see that something has changed, something has been fixed. So all of those are also DevOps, benefits of DevOps as well. So they're very intertwined. But those changes mean a lot to the organization. How quickly can we implement changes, for the customer? Because if eventually everything that we're building is so that we can have good, um, um, we can provide good services or good products to the customers. Anything we're doing, even as the DevOps engineer, is so that the customers can be happy. That's what it boils down to. It's not for us to just geek away on the Kubernetes tool that we're using, or on the latest AI model. It's for the customer to eventually be happy. All right. So high impact changes are some of the benefits you get. Frequent high impact changes, are some of those benefits you get for using cloud native approaches or cloud native computing. Of course, minimal toil, which is similar to what you have in what's it called, in DevOps engineering. So those are just some of the benefits. Now I took this off the CNCF charter, so you can definitely go look into that. But let's come back. I've been mentioning CNCF. What is the CNCF? That's where we're going to next. We're going to talk about the Linux Foundation and CNCF. So, but before we talk about the CNCF, let's look at Linux Foundation. Now, just a quick check again for people in the chat, or you can unmute your mic, to respond, or you can just type in the chat. Either of them is fine. What's the Linux Foundation? Have you heard of the Linux Foundation? If you have, then what is the Linux Foundation? Let's see. Anybody? You can raise your hand and unmute your mic. If no one is speaking, you can unmute your mic and speak, or just type it in the chat if you're too shy. What's the Linux Foundation?
This is Joy. So I've heard about Linux Foundation. I would say that is let's say it's like a team, or I don't know how to put it, but I know that Linux Foundation is a team or a home that is used for collaboration. So they are more focused on collaboration on open source software and hardwares and data. So we have a lot of projects which include Linux, Kubernetes, I think Node.js, and there's this is it PyTorch? I'm not so sure. So they focus on like using leveraging like using the best practices, and they have a lot of open source contributors and users. So it's more like a team of open source people, but they also have a standard where if you want to contribute, you have to go make sure you adhere to their standard and their guidelines before you can contribute. So that's
Awesome, awesome, awesome. Thank you very much for that, Joy. Thanks for speaking up. Who else wants to try? Who else wants to try? Somebody was explaining before you go on, Oluwasegun or Ayodeji, before you speak. Somebody said cloud native is cloud, um or native and cloud, something like that. using the question, using the words in the question to give the answer. So how about Linux Foundation? How about, does that fit in? So Oluwasegun, let's hear you.
Okay, good evening, Larry. Thank you. So it fits in also. I believe you can hear me. So Linus Foundation, to me, what I know is that it was founded by Linus Torvald. That was Linus Torvald. So I think so. The foundation was actually created, I mean, conceived for the for population of open source project and open source, for people to come into open source and share what they know, share with people, and then for more people to benefit of these tools. So basically, it was the idea of Linus Torvald, from what I know so far, and for people to take advantage of the tool, and then he made the tool open, and then for people to take advantage of the tool and do wonders with the tool. So I don't know if you get that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. Before Richard speaks, just just a question. Was it actually Linus Torvalds who founded the Linux Foundation? But that's just I just threw that in. You can just think through it. Let's have Richard. Richard, please go ahead.
Okay, I'm not sure who founded. I don't think I can respond to that yet. But from my understanding about the Linux Foundation, still on the term Linux, even from what I know about them, the whole idea of the foundation came around when Linux itself was created as an open source project. So foundation itself is just the way CNCF is now and was later created under them. The whole idea was to manage the project Linux as an open source software, but later on they now expanded to hardware, blockchain, and cloud in the end, where CNCF now came in. So, but majorly the idea of Linux was based on Linux as an open source project, then also other open source projects started coming in after Linux. So yeah, that's what I know about Linux Foundation. Thank you.
Interesting input there, Richard. Thank you for sharing. Who else? Does anybody else want to try? Okay, we have Dennis. Dennis, please go ahead.
Okay, thank you. So, what I know about the Linux Foundation is that it's a non-profit organization that's main goal is to promote open source and also the Linux operating system itself. And when we talk about open source, it's related to all the open source projects we currently know, and related to the CNCF. The CNCF, the Cloud Native Computing Foundation, is a sub-project of the Linux Foundation. That's main goal is to handle open source project related to the DevOps ecosystem. So this is what I know about these two words.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing that as well, Dennis. Does anybody else? One more person before I, you know, take the microphone again. One more person. Okay, I don't see anybody. So let's move on. Thank you for sharing, everyone who spoke there. Well done. So the Linux Foundation. Yes. So the reason why I asked, to just check, Stovall that actually founded the Linux Foundation. Well, that's not part of, talk about. You can do your research, but when I talk about the CNCF, then you'd probably um, understand why I said so. So the Linux Foundation, this is the front page of the Linux Foundation's website, and yeah, it says the Linux Foundation is a 501c6 non-profit that provides a neutral, trusted hub for developers and organizations to code, manage, and scale open technology projects and ecosystems. So, like some of us already said, there is a thing about building an ecosystem that the Linux Foundation is working on, or the Linux Foundation is trying to accomplish or achieve, and primarily these projects in the Linux Foundation are open source projects. All right. So the Linux Foundation is responsible for setting up standards in open computing, in open source computing. And it's more than, of course, Linux is the word in Linux Foundation that is very popular to us, but maybe that is a bit misleading, because Linux is not just the only tool in the Linux Foundation. All right. um it's just like cloud native that we mentioned earlier. you know Even though we say cloud native, but many of the cloud native projects can run outside of the cloud. All right, so it may just be, and it's similar to how this is how I say it. Cloud native is to the cloud as computer science is to computers. I'll just give a story, a short story. When I was in the university, of course, I studied computer science in the university, and I recall one of our lecturers made a remark and said, "Oh, you thought you folks were coming here to press computers?" It was a that was a math lecturer, and we were doing mathematics. A lot of people were confused, and they were like, "Oh, I thought we were going to come here and we'll be on computers," and they were shocked to see that it was mathematics, a lot of mathematics. And so, and when I began to do some research into computer science, I saw that computer science is the discipline of um, learning about problems and their solutions. That's where we have algorithms. That's why algorithms are a big thing in computer science. You're trying to solve a problem, and algorithms are like, step by step process to solving a problem. So that was what I found computer science to be. And the thing about that is that eventually we use the computer to solve these problems. All right. So similar to cloud native is just something similar, but eventually many of these things will become native to the cloud. All right. So that's how I see it. And bringing that into the Linux Foundation, Linux is just fortunate to be the first software, that catalyzed this movement or this ecosystem. Starting in 1991, where the young Helsinki boy, well, not the young lad, sent an email or sent a message to a news group and said, "I'm working on this tool," and a lot of people began to pick interest from that time. And just shameless plug, I made a video on YouTube to explain um, what happened, or what's the history from 1991 till date. So you can check out my YouTube page. Sorry to just add that in. It's a very nice documentary I did on that particular thing. Yeah. So Linux Foundation is this foundation, non-profit organization that is responsible for, this ecosystem, this open ecosystem, and Linux, of course, being the first project, in that ecosystem. But Linux Foundation over the years, and of course, Linux Foundation did not start when Linux was created. It came along the line when people decided to build standards around computing, open computing or open source computing. But that's a story for another day. So the Linux Foundation has over 900 open source projects. Today there are over 3 million developers that have been trained, by the Linux Foundation. 700 plus developers contribute code to the projects in the Linux Foundation. We have over 50 million lines of code being added weekly. There are 17,000 organizations that are contributing to the Linux Foundation. So that's huge. All right. And there are events, of course, that the Linux Foundation also hosts. One of them is the Open Source Summit, I believe. Open Source Summit. So those are good stuff. Then there are also, some other subgroups under the Linux Foundation, and that is the one that concerns us here. CNCF, the Cloud Native Computing Foundation is a subgroup under the Linux Foundation. For instance, there are other groups, subgroups, such as I think there's the Hyperledger Foundation, responsible for things and blockchain. There is um just the Software Foundation, which led out recently to promote sustainable practices in computing. I'll give an example of what I mean by sustainable practices. There was I once hosted a cloud native conference. I was a host there, a virtual conference, I think in 2021 and two, and somebody came to speak from AWS. This lady was an engineer in AWS, and she began to explain to us how you can become green or greener. For instance, when you provision an EC2 instance, on the cloud, or a server on the cloud, or maybe a virtual machine on Azure, when you do that, and what is actually happening is that there is a hardware somewhere in a data center that is consuming power, producing, carbon and all of those things. And sometimes those technologies, I mean, those virtual machines or EC2 instances are not, what you need for what you're doing. So you're using infrastructure, and you're producing carbon in the atmosphere, but you're not even using up to what that infrastructure is meant to be. And they built softwares that would tell you how much carbon your EC2 instance is releasing. So you can know the effect of your work or your company's work. You can know whether you're following sustainable practices. Maybe you need to use a different kind of server, a different kind of EC2 instance in your cloud environment, or maybe you need to, use a different region. Those are good stuff, and those are things that, for instance, the Green Software Foundation, would be focusing on, and I particularly like that, and that's why I just took some time to just talk about that. So those are some subgroups or sub foundations under the Linux Foundation. The CNCF is the one that we're most interested in, on this call. And so let's move over to the CNCF. So the CNCF has a mission. CNCF, by the way, is Cloud Native Computing Foundation. And the mission of the CNCF is to make cloud native computing ubiquitous. That means the CNCF is established to ensure that cloud native is everywhere. So that's the goal of the CNCF. And definitely it means they will promote whatever is cloud native, and it just makes sense that many, of course, there are several projects that are cloud native or tailored towards cloud native, but not all those projects are open source, and not all those projects are under the CNCF. So you may be in the CNCF ecosystem and think that all of the things in the CNCF landscape are the only cloud native technologies that exist. That's a misconception as well. I just wanted to point that out. Even though there are, 129 projects in the CNCF sandbox, there are 37 of them that are being incubated, and there's 30 of them that have graduated. For instance, Kubernetes is the very first project in the CNCF landscape. And I'll give us the history just very quickly in a short while from now. So the Kubernetes is, the very first software or technology that was donated to the CNCF. Now, backstory, like I said, I have a YouTube video that explains all of these things. Google had built a technology. This is the backstory of the CNCF. I'm giving us the history. Google had built a technology that they were using in-house, for, their deployment, for scaling, applications, and of course, Google is a global organization. Everybody, the entire world uses Google's technology. Of course, maybe China doesn't use Google search, but a big part of the world uses Google systems. And so Google would need to ensure that their systems are scalable and reliable. And so they built this tool called Borg, Borg. And Borg, was that tool for them that was the holy grail. But in the spirit of open source, Google said, let us bring this technology to the community. Let's bring it out and make it open source. And so Borg was rewritten from the language that it was before, and it was rewritten using Golang, and then it was they in I think it was in 2014, DockerCon 2014, where some of the engineers and executives in Google at the time came to DockerCon, that conference, and they presented this rewritten software now called Kubernetes. And they said, oh, we're releasing Kubernetes, and we believe that it can help you, scale your containers. Now, this was a Docker conference. Docker, had made containerization very easy. They had built a UX, a user experience around Linux containers. It used to be Linux containers, but Docker now came and started to help people use containers, and adopt containers more. So it was very easy. You can just download Docker and create containers with a simple command, you know. And so Docker was doing all of that, and it was nice. So Kubernetes came along, and the guys from Google says, "Oh, we can help you scale containers, to hundreds of thousands, and there was this orchestrator that would handle it for you, and that's what they called Kubernetes, and it was released at DockerCon. Or it was mentioned at DockerCon, and I recall from the story that I saw when it was released, Docker also had a piece of software called Docker Swarm that was also doing something similar to what Kubernetes was doing. But in that week that Kubernetes was announced, the open source contributions to Docker Swarm dropped to zero, and the contribution to Kubernetes increased tremendously. So it seemed like Kubernetes stole Docker's conference. So it was not now. It was now a. It was now as it was as if that conference was set up for Kubernetes. All right. So I feel sad for the guys who hosted that because their own product didn't get as much popularity. But that was how Kubernetes came to the fore, and eventually, because this was going to be made open source. Now, looking at the politics and cultural effect of all of these things, it won't be too nice if AWS says, I'm using, okay, somebody is I think Avinash, do you want to mute? I'm not able to mute you from here. So yeah, so Kubernetes was launched or announced at DockerCon, and a lot of people began to pick interest in Kubernetes. They started to contribute, started to adopt Kubernetes. But the challenge was, how do we ensure that everybody uses this software, or everybody comes along to adopt this technology, because this is Google's technology, or this is built by Google engineers, primarily Google engineers. But then you're a Google engineer or you're a Google executive, and you want people in the community, which is made up of more than Google, to adopt your technology. So the thing that happened is that many of these folks came together and said, let's create this foundation, that is vendor neutral, and it's provider neutral. It's not Google, it's not Amazon, it's not Microsoft, it's neutral, and we can donate the Kubernetes project to this foundation. And that's how the CNCF was born, under the Linux Foundation, following the standards of open computing that Linux Foundation had set in place. And it became the first technology under the Cloud Native Computing Foundation landscape. But over the years, we've had, Kubernetes is the first project to graduate in the CNCF um, landscape, but today we have 29 more that have graduated, including Kubernetes being the first and 29 more, total of 30 projects. But we have some others that are, being incubated. We have some that are in the sandbox stage. This, for instance, we have Argo CD. Some of us know Argo CD. Some of us may have heard of Envoy, some of us may have heard of Prometheus. These are projects being, should I say, being handled or being managed by the CNCF, the Cloud Native Computing Foundation. And of course, I'd also mention one project that I've also worked on, privileged to work on in my former organization, Container Solutions. That project is called External Secrets Operator. All right, it's also now a part of the CNCF landscape. And so there are projects like this, and these are open source projects. You can work on them, you can contribute to them. I know one of the sessions we'll have in this bootcamp will talk about Prometheus and Grafana, and somebody who actually contributed to open telemetry, which is also a project under the CNCF, would be facilitating that session. So please just stay tuned. Yep. So that's the CNCF, and in 2014 when they were established, or when CNCF was established, when Kubernetes was announced, pardon me, since then the CNCF now began to host, Kelsey Hightower, who is a very popular person in the cloud native space. He co-founded what you call KubeCon. All right, KubeCon, Cloud Native Con. That means Cube Conference and Cloud Native Conference. And that conference, holds yearly in different regions, in Europe, in North America, now in Asia. We have in Asia. We don't have in Africa yet, but there are other, initiatives from the CNCF that, for instance, we have KCD Kubernetes Community Days. We used to have Kubernetes Community Days Africa. Now we have Kubernetes Community Days Nigeria. We have Accra, and several other regions. There used to be something called Cube Day, but I think that has been stopped now. There is also what we have as meetups, cloud native computing groups host meetups, smaller meetups, but the and Cloud Native Conference is the largest event in the CNCF um, ecosystem, and we have thousands of people who attend KubeCon every year in different regions. So you can also, look out for that. You can check out that. You can just Google that and find more information, or you can go to the CNCF's website to understand more about that. So that's the CNCF. There are members, there are companies that are members of the CNCF as well, including your favorite companies, the big tech like Facebook or Meta, Microsoft, Azure, Microsoft, Amazon, Red Hat. This big tech also, like I said earlier, they came together and said, let's create this foundation so that we can contribute projects to this foundation, and these projects are not biased towards one of these members. These projects are unbiased in the ecosystem, and they have a standard, they have a policy. Also there is a governance system in the CNCF. Unfortunately, I may not be able to talk about all of that, but I'll definitely share the slides, which will contain more of all of that, all of the things that I've shared with us. I think I have one more slide here. Yeah. Okay, I think that's 1 second. Give me a second. I think, yep, sorry. This is the slide. Okay, the focus of the CNCF, the Cloud-Native Computing Foundation seeks to drive adoption of this paradigm by fostering and sustaining an ecosystem of open source, vendor neutral projects. We democratize state of the art patterns to make these innovations accessible for everyone. Literally, what I've been trying to explain, for the past couple of minutes. I think that is my last slide. There's supposed to be more, but I'll update this slide and make it available for us. I was supposed to talk about this, but of course, we're we're running out of time quickly, and I didn't make any content for this, but I'll definitely update this and let us see or let us know when I do. So I think that will be all for now. Um, Thank you very much, everyone, for listening. If you have any questions, please you can mention it. You can let me know. I'll be happy to, answer them. Does anybody have any question? Anybody at all?
Okay. Thank you so much, Larry. That was amazing.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. That was a lot, and I know there's so much that you didn't get to, but that was that was a lot. Uh, Thank you. Um, so,
Appreciate it.
so the community, do you have any questions? Questions? Please know that we're going to take a quiz after this. So just ensure you ask your questions now before the quiz, so that you get. All right. So let's take Samson. Samson, please unmute.
All right. Hello. Larry, thank you so much for the session. It was really insightful. My question now is, you told us about the definition of cloud native. I mean, the official definition. But I would want to ask, in your own words now, say maybe for a layman or for a beginner, how would you describe cloud native computing in a very layman terms? Thanks.
Okay. Apologies. Can we maybe take the questions together so that I can answer them? Daniel, if you don't mind. And please, I'll need
That's
to beg for like 2 minutes.
that's fine. All right. So
Thank
so
you.
we've noted that first one from Samson, which is how you define cloud native in your own words for layman. All right. So that's question one. Ayodeji, let's take yours. Ay- Ayodeji, can you please unmute and let's have your question?
Yes. Hello, good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead. Thank you.
Yeah. It's still based on what Samson said. The definition of cloud native actually. Now we have, let's say, for example, I know of like Demos. They they're actually a software company, and like they pride themselves being a cloud native company also. And what Iliri said is, I think the second definition we gave, like coupling together softwares, running them to provide like security of that and all that. So like, what was like the standard for defining cloud native? Because I so much hear of that term, but I can't really just get enough of the definition. Like, what is this? What is this? If like a company like that, they run softwares, like they develop softwares and they help run it. So won't like the best definition be coupling software together, running it on the cloud, providing security and all the other fundamentals as pertaining software engineering?
All right. Thank you. Thank you for the question. Okay. Any other question? Anybody else? All right, I want us to be done with this question and answer in the next maybe like 3 minutes, 4 minutes thereabout, so we can get on to the other things. Okay, Illyri, I think those are the questions for now. It's the same question really, just for you to throw more light on what cloud native really is. Like it seems like a very hairy, like a very hairy topic. What is cloud native essentially?
I would say you should not get stuck on definitions. All right, cloud native is different things to different people. I was once a cloud native engineer, and my job was doing what DevOps engineers, um, do, but using cloud native technologies, using open source technologies from the CNCF landscape, especially Kubernetes. Um, so don't get stuck on what cloud native is. I think you should rather focus on, you know, learning. If you want to learn those technologies, good for you, based off of what your organization requires. All right. So don't. You can say cloud native computing is doing. I mean, cloud native computing is doing cloud native. I mean, doing cloud computing. Pardon me, the right way. That's what some people say, and all of these things are just definitions. So don't be too caught up with that. Yes. Then the second question was talking about, if I got it correctly, the person was saying how. What do you? Sorry. Do you want to help um put that question correctly? I know you mentioned a company like Deimos in South Africa, building, they pride themselves as a cloud native organization. So do you want to just quickly clarify, maybe in like 30 seconds? Okay, you're not here, but anyways, okay, yeah, you're here. Okay,
Hello.
please go ahead.
I think yeah, I think you have said it. I feel it's just like DevOps. I think cloud native for me is still like DevOps. Doing DevOps and cloud native is still. I feel it's actually the same thing.
Oh, okay, right. Well, it's not the same, but we can talk about that after the call. Please feel free to just send a DM, either on LinkedIn or Twitter, and we can talk about, or you can tag me in any of your posts. I'll just respond because of our time.
All right. All right.
Thank you. Oh, Daniel, thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Larry, for that session. Um, it was very, very in depth, very broad. The truth is, the cloud native space, and I mean, we're even just trying to get around the definition. It's very broad, and requires a lot of a lot of in-depth diving into, which also reminds me of what we talked about yesterday. One of the things that we want to do for this course is that as you're doing this course, it's good for you to also be using the experience, dive into KCNA course alongside. And just like we said yesterday, he gave us as a community 30 should I say vouchers or scholarship for scholarship for 30 people to get his course for free. And we'll be giving that out, I think either by next week or upper week. The top 30 people um, in the cohort or in the bootcamp. And how are we going to do that? We're going to do that again by using the points system that we've already set up. So we're going to have a quiz shortly. But before we get into that, I just want to um, okay, well, we can go into that right now. But let me talk a bit about the hands-on labs, because one of the things we're also going to be doing in this course is hands-on labs. But however, there won't be hands-on lab for a topic like this, for a session like this, because you can't do hands-on lab for for mostly theoretical stuff. which so the hands-on lab, you will start really using it when we get into Kubernetes. Next week we're going to dive into containers. We're going. Sorry, just a moment. Let me pull up the. I mean, by the way, you can also see the curriculum in the Slack channel that we're in. I pinned it's one message there. So you see that for week 2 we have container fundamentals with Docker. And that will be taken by Roland. Roland is on the call or was on the call. I don't know if he's still okay. Roland is here. Roland, please feel free to unmute and show your video so that people can. Thank you so much, Roland. Roland is actually, I would say, one of the masterminds behind this entire bootcamp. He came to us and said, why don't we do this? And we are today. So thank you so much, Roland. Roland also, has been very pivotal to getting this running. So thank you very much, Roland. So Roland will be taking the next week session on container fundamentals with Docker. From there we'll now begin to go deeper into Kubernetes and that. So somebody's asking, says, please, how much is the course without scholarship? Okay, yeah, thank you so much, Larry. The bootcamp is free. If you're asking about the dive into course that I talked about yesterday, the scholarship is makes it free for you as well on the dive into course. But if you don't get the scholarship, there's also 80% discount that's on his website. If you just go to diveinto.com, you will see it there. Okay. So if there are no questions or anything, I think we can go into the quiz. Please also note that the quiz is counts towards your points. All right. And like we said, the top 30, by the time we're about to give out the vouchers, will be the people that will get the vouchers. So try to do well. So the way it's going to work is that I'm going to share my screen. You will need to take out maybe your phone or your laptop or whatever you're using, whatever device you're using, and go to a certain link that I will share. And we will do the quiz right here, right now. Just a minute while I get that set up. While I'm setting that up, if there are any questions, please unmute and ask your questions.
Yeah, good day, Daniel. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
All right. I'm kind of using my phone to attend the session, and you made mention of sharing your screen and also sending a link. Is it that you will display the question on your screen and then we'll enter the answer on the
Yeah.
page
So
from the link?
if you've used Kahoot before, it's quite similar. So it's very forward. Two things you can if you can see my screen, please you can do what's that thing called now? You can use your QR code. Yeah, thank you very much. School good though. You can scan the barcode and use and it will log you in. Or however, you can also use this link. Let me post the link to the what's that called? Where are we? Okay, so I just sent the link. Click the link and enter the pin. And okay, you can see 3 players. We have 4 players. We're already filling up. So let's go. Let's go. Let's go. Let's go. Let's go. Let's get it started. All right. 6 players. 8 players. Let's go. Let's go. So we have let me just give 2 or 3 minutes for people to join in because we're over 30 on the call. So see more people. Let's go. All right. 1 more minute. Just want to let people join in. Let's go. Okay. Are we getting to 30? Once we just get to 30, we'll just move on. I'm going to give at least 1 more minute. Please, it's actually important that you put in that place where I talked about first name. Please ensure that you put your first name, or so that we can know you, can know who it is. Okay, so let's start. All right. So are we ready for question 1? Let's go. What is a primary characteristic of cloud native architecture? Microservice scaling, monolithic applications, static infrastructure. Okay. All right. So 19 people responded. Let's see. All right. People are geniuses here. All right, let's go. Which of the following best describes auto-scaling in cloud-native environments? Dynamic adjustment based on load, scaling only during business hours, fixed resource allocation, manual adjustment of resources. Let's go. Awesome. Somebody chose all right, so GG is on top. Camille. All right, let's go. In the context of cloud native applications, which following practices are considered best practices for CI/CD? Select all that apply. So select more than one here. Actually, select 3. There are 3 that are right. Only 1 answer submitted. All right, let's go. What is a key benefit of serverless architecture? Pay-per-use pricing, increased latency, limited scalability, requires constant server management. This GG is on top of, I don't know if it's a he or she, but you're on top of your game. Okay. Which role is primary for the governance of cloud native technologies within an organization? The DevOps engineer, product owner, cloud architect, compliance officer. Interesting. GG, don't. All right, so Camille. All right. What does the term personas refer to in the context of cloud native architecture? types of cloud services, user roles and responsibilities, deployment environment, container orchestration tools. Okay, let's go, let's go, let's go, let's go. Awesome. Omo Gigi has been knocked off. So Camille is leading. Which of the following are key principles of cloud native development? Select all that matter. So select three from here. There are three that are correct. Continuous delivery services, microservices, architecture, statelessness of service, tight coupling between components. All right. Let's see. Camille. Camille, please. Only Camille got this one. Which of the following is an example of open standard in cloud native technologies? Kubernetes API, Microsoft Azure, Docker containers, .NET framework. Let's go, let's go, let's go, let's go. All right. Correct answer is Kubernetes API. All right, so quite a number has got that. Almost done. How does cloud native architecture enhance resilience? So manual deployment strategies, using monolithic application, automated recovery process, by limiting resource usage. Let's go, let's go, let's go, let's go, let's go. All right. Camille. Okay. All right. To the final question. Which of the following are benefits of a service mesh in a cloud native application? So select three questions, three that are correct. Traffic between microservices, observability, monitoring capabilities. Wow. All right. So nobody got this one. So let's see the final results. So these are the top 5. Okay, so Camille with 4,685 points. Raman, Avinash K, got time, and Gigi. Gigi was doing so well from the beginning. All right, so we will update this. All right, so you see top 5 there. So that is the quiz. Okay, hope you enjoyed that session. Yeah, I need to download. Okay, I think I've downloaded it. Let me see. Let me see what the top. Let's see what everybody got. Okay, let me share my screen again so I can show you guys the.
So sorry. Excuse me. I have something to say.
Yeah, God's time. Let's go. What do you have to say?
Do you have India guys now, Mister? I was seeing some names, I was scared.
Okay, well,
It's
we're an
fine. It's
open
actually fine.
we're an
I
open
like the
community.
conversation. It's fine. Yeah, I understand.
Daniel, I raised up my hand at the point, right? I wanted to say something. So a few of us were unable to sign in because the the minutes, the timing you gave to set up, use another screen, something, it was too short, and I can imagine someone trying to open their laptop or get another phone or something. A few of us, like I didn't join for one, and I can see from the comments also that a lot of people were saying they were they were logged out or something. So I'm just saying this, right? If everybody here is here for the same thing, it will just be fair if
you give the information and say, okay, set up. Then if we are ready, you can proceed or something. Than just moving on like that. I are carrying just very few people along. It's not fair. It's not fair.
Okay, okay. Um, Noted. Sorry about that. Sorry you feel that way. But noted. Thank you very
And
much. Okay.
sorry, please, Mr. Daniel, please, I want to also add something. Hello,
Yes, hear you.
hello, please, I want to also add something.
Yeah,
Yeah,
sure.
so basically, so I was thinking that the quiz will be based on what was explained in the class, like what Amilegi explained. So I don't know that the quiz is going to be based on cloud computing concept, but we that we don't have knowledge about that we are just starting. So I think so I was thinking the quiz basically went with me for anything we are taught in the class. Maybe we are paying attention, maybe we are paying attention. But seeing some guys, I mean the GG Camille guys are so I'm thinking those guys are probably cloud engineers already. But we that we are beginners, so I don't know if the quiz is
So is
actually
Camille
for
on the
us.
course on the call? Camille, are you here? Of course, you have to be here to have. Can you unmute? Let's hear your voice.
No, not you. Not you. No, you comes, 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 comes.
Okay. All right. No problem. So, Hilary, what do you suggest? Do we? Some people are crying foul.
Well, I think we can annul this one and have a discussion around it so that the things are
Ah,
fair.
no.
Okay. All right. So we should cancel this one.
I think we should. However, we
All
can.
right. That's
Please,
I'm saying
please. Sorry for interrupting. First of all, I want to counter the last responder. Nobody is a guru in cloud. I mean, I don't know. I'm a beginner like him. Like I'm a beginner. I don't even know zilch in cloud at all. So it's not a matter of because someone knows something is in top five. Yeah, I understand the fact that network issues, other stuff, network issues also affected me, right? But please, you should not say because someone is a cloud engineer, I'm also a beginner like him. I don't know anything in this thing. So please, you guys should reconsider annulling the stuff. Thank you.
yeah.
okay. I
It's
think.
quite an interesting one. Annulling it would really
Mm,
impact those who put in the work. Because we also need to
mhm.
ensure that we are incentivizing, putting in the work, doing what you need to do at when told to do so. So because I mean,
Right.
consider we are 34 and 26 people, or sorry, 23 people joined. So that is that's a whole lot. That's a whole lot of uh, people who are able to get it. So I don't agree that it was too short a time because if not, you'd have had fewer people that joined. So those who were unable to join are actually very much in the minority. Um, so yeah. Well, so this is the interesting part about open communities, right? You get to debate different kinds of things. So
Indeed. Indeed.
all
I
right,
have a suggestion. Sorry.
yeah, go ahead.
Okay. This is Emmanuel Christopher Ogre. The last complaint that was made, I think she has a point. Many people are not coming from computer science or tech background. Maybe this is their first shot at tech. So there are people who already have knowledge of this concept. Maybe it's a front end or back end or a mobile engineer or a DevOps or a cloud or let's say an IT support. But there are many in this group that you can see somebody, a virtual assistant joining KCNA. So how do you expect her to know monolithic or microservice or all this stuff, best practices? So I think after we like go, let's say the second class, then let's start the counting from there. Because serious, you have to consider them that are not really from tech backgrounds. I don't know if you reason the way I see it.
Noted. Noted. Thank you very much for contributing to that. Precious. Precious, please go ahead if you want to speak. If not, Anyelu, please go ahead to speak.
Yeah, good day, everybody. So I still do not see a reason why we shouldn't use the result that was obtained today, right? I think it was clear enough from the onset that the class is open for people from with zero experience to maximum experience, right? So we shouldn't bring discussions like people with zero experience or whatsoever. Definitely, as we grow into the class, everybody will grow in, right? And we definitely have a sense of what we are doing. So I would strongly advise we should use the results so obtained. That's it from me. Thank you.
All right, noted. Thank you very much. Okay, so let's not waste too much, spend more time on this. We will continue the conversation on the Slack. The results have been taken down, and we'll go back, discuss it. We can also put our, if you have more ideas on the Slack, you can put it there. That's one of the good things about a community like this. I mean, it's open. We all have a say. So yeah. So we're done with that. That brings us to the end of today's class. If there are no more questions or comments, if there are questions and comments, we can take it now. If not, we will move on to close for the day. Questions, comments?
To say, can I ask my question?
Yes, please go ahead.
Okay, so I'm pretty much concerned about the questions. Can we get them?
Do you mean the quiz that we just did?
Yeah, the quiz we just did. I would like to write some things there.
Awesome, awesome. That's a great spirit. So I'll send it to the I'll send it to the Slack. I'll send it. So yeah, that's good
Okay, thank
because
you.
these are the KCNA. These are some of the KCNA kinds of questions that you will get in the exam. So you have to begin to put yourself in very uncomfortable situations with this. If you don't know it, you take the questions and go and do your research and learn more about it. And that's why I'm strongly recommending that James Spearing course. But as we go along, we'll see more of that. Okay, Abdul Karim, Abdul Hakim, sorry.
Thank you. So, regarding the quiz, well, I don't really have much knowledge about cloud actually, but I think it's a way to push ourselves. So there's no reason to annul the scores. And then second thing is that can we get the materials you are going to teach us upfront so that we can prepare and then move further too?
Okay, noted. Noted. Thank you. China Echerem Mba. All right, thank you. Please speak. Okay.
Can you guys?
We heard you. We heard. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. I want to talk about concerning canceling the quiz. I don't know. We should not cancel it, so it's not advisable. Sha. This is a competitive. I think we are all reason towards a um,
Sorry, it's breaking, so we can't really hear you. Maybe you put it on the chat. Can't. It's breaking really bad. We can't hear you.
So it's not my fault you don't have experience, and it's not something like it's a beginner.
All right, thank you. I think the points I think we get the gist of it, even though it's difficult to hear, but I think we get the gist of it, of where you stand. Thank you. The last person, that's Olakunle Obasoro. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Daniel. Just I don't have issues, people, about the quiz or pulling it down. But the issue I have was network. I don't know, trying to log in, and I know a lot of people were wanting to go in, but they could not. Maybe there was I don't know how the website or and someone was suggesting whether we could use Kahoot or use something. I've not used that quiz.d before. I've not seen it before. So, and I was just stuck there, and and the quiz was ongoing. I tried multiple times, both laptop, phone, at the same time, nothing was working. So, both Wi-Fi and mobile data. So I just say maybe you should look at that site. Something is not, maybe it's something you could work on.
Noted. Noted. Thank you very much. Okay, so we'll take it
Hello,
off.
I think all right, sorry, I wanted to chip in something.
Okay, make your points quickly so that we can. I want to know
All right, so
exactly.
concerning the quiz, I feel that in a quiz or in a situation like this, everybody's it will not always be fair to everybody anyways. So some people will complain of one thing while the others will complain of the other thing. We're in Lagos, we're in Nigeria, for example, so network issues is a challenge to virtually everybody. And when it comes to knowledge gap or knowledge issue, uh, everybody here, basically, or most people here, will probably be learners just trying to get up and running, trying to find out how these things work and the like. So many times, even the questions and the answers, you are not sure when picking. You just feel like, okay, this should probably be the answer, and you pick. And sometimes you get it, sometimes you get it wrong. There are a couple of questions I picked, and I didn't. For example, the multiple choice questions, I selected the choices I want. I didn't know I had to select the submit button. So I didn't, because my computer screen was not showing that submit side very well. Unlike the single choice question where you just select one and it just automatically upload your answer. So for those ones, I failed it. So, but if we want to all justify this and that, everybody will have a reason why to pull it down and why not to pull it down. So that's why I said we can't all have it can't be fair to us. It's a quiz actually, is a competition. So everybody just has to put in what you can and just to get what you can out of it. So that's what I feel about it.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you very much. All right, so I think that is it. Okay, let's just take this last one. Oluwasegun, you're the last person, so please speak.
Okay, so basically, so what I want to add is that so even though we that the quiz is scheduled for next week again, so it will be favorable to some people again, like what Mr. John said. So basically, some
Oluwasegun, we
people
really
have.
can't hear you. It's very low.
Hello, can you hear me now? I believe I'm audible now.
It's
Hello,
very low.
hello,
All right,
hello.
continue. Continue. We can hear you.
Okay, so I said so even though we the quiz for next week again, so different people with different complaints again. So I feel it's just the quiz. So the quiz won't be favorable to everybody. So I don't think we should annul the quiz. So we should just keep
Noted.
going. So it's
All
quiz.
right.
So even though it's next week again, it's gonna be the same thing.
All right, noted. Thank you very much. Okay, so thank you very much for attending the class today. I hope you learned a few things. Uh, but the truth is, in learning things like this, it's always going to be about personal responsibility to take some of the ideas and go on your own to go and do some more research. Go to the CNCF website, go to the Linux Foundation website, read up, try to understand. Also, try to get we'll do our best to also put some of these links on the Slack. Go read up the manual for the exam that you want to write, the KCNA exam. I'll put up the link for that on the Slack. Let's say the manual, the handbook, so it breaks these things down. So you know what you need to learn, what you need to understand, if you, I know some people have already done some level of Kubernetes and all of that, you know, but the KCNA is broader than just Kubernetes, so you know the aspects that you need to cover and all of that. So I think it's a very good start that we've had today. So please try to do some reading this week. We'll continue to engage on the Slack. If you have questions, please just ask. You can just, if you have questions, please try to ask it on the group instead of a direct message, right? So that from your question, everybody else can also benefit. So please, let's try to engage on the group, not instead of direct messaging. Try to limit the direct messaging as much as possible. Yeah. Okay, thank you very much. And with that, we say have a great night. See you here again next week where we do Docker. Bye.